When a shark is considering a possible meal, it sometimes will saunter up and bump its prey. It's called a shark bump, in order to see how the possible meal will react. Will it be a threat? Will it fight back? Is it yummy? Is it delicious? Does it have any idea what's coming? There's a story out of Richmond, Virginia, to me, that feels a little like a massive shark bump on American citizens. Here's what I want you to remember tonight. Our limits are being tested. Are we awake? Are we going to be somebody's meal? The story is about Brandon J. Robb. He's a 26-year-old former Marine. According to relatives, he is a combat veteran in both Iraq and Afghanistan. He had been in FBI custody since last Thursday and was scheduled to be involuntarily held for 30 additional days after what authorities say were ominous Facebook posts saying things like, quote, "The revolution is upon us." Boy, I haven't heard that one before. The revolution is upon us. Okay, he writes that, puts it on Facebook. He's being held at a mental hospital. He was forced to undergo a series of psychiatric evaluations. This was set to go on for 30 days until just a couple of hours ago when a judge ordered his release, saying Robb had suffered deprivation of his liberty because he was being held without a clear charge against him. The system worked. But how did we ever have it go this far? Every family member and every friend says Brandon is definitely not insane, and no one came forward to say he is insane. In the Facebook post we saw, he didn't specify any specific threat to anyone. He just made vague references to revolution, and he talked about taking back the republic. The big crazy thing the media pointed to was a quote where he says, quote, "Sharpen my axe, I'm here to sever heads." He posted it without any other context. The phrase is from a lyric from a Canadian hip-hop song that nobody in the media seems to mind. But in his proclamation, he is pretty clearly anti-war. He says, quote, "Force is not the way because liberty is a powerful concept. The idea that men can govern themselves is the basis for every just form of government." Now, he has no history of violence. He has no history of mental instability. No one thought this guy was going to come out of his house and begin decapitating people with a sword. Yet, until just a couple of hours ago today, he was detained against his will without charge while he was undergoing psychiatric testing. Now, I want to make something extraordinarily clear. I don't agree with him on several things. He appears, one, to be a 9/11 truther. I don't believe that the United States government blew up the World Trade Centers. I think that's madness, quite honestly. I also don't think quoting a song about severing heads is the best way to go. But I defend your right to believe that the federal government blew up the World Trade Center. I defend your right to say that, to make the argument. As long as it's a nonviolent argument, you have a right to say that. And I will defend, unfortunately, your right to say that, because it's important in a democracy and a republic. The question here is, does quoting song lyrics and believing, being a 9/11 truther, does that rise to the level of a 30-day involuntary stay at a mental hospital? I don't have to agree with you to defend you. It's important as Americans we stand up. You have the right to say the things that you believe. Robb was apparently detained after refusing to allow the authorities to search his home without a warrant. Since when is that crazy? Let me get this straight. No Miranda rights, no warrant, no charges, no signs of actual psychiatric problems. Throw in a couple of offensive opinions on Facebook and that lands you in the mental institution? America, shark bump. The police and FBI decided to act under a rarely used state law that allows, quote, "emergency temporary psychiatric commitments upon the recommendation of a mental health professional." Perfect. Now, I don't know if you know anything about the 1963 list of communist goals from the Communist Party USA, but number 39 came to mind to me today. Number 39 is dominate the psychiatric profession and use mental health laws as a means of gaining coercive control over those who oppress communist goals. If this were an isolated incident, I probably wouldn't be talking to you tonight, at least bringing up the 1963 communist goals. But here's a man who risked his life to defend treasured American principles like free speech, and he was in a mental institution. That is a much scarier proposition than anything anyone could have written on Facebook. He'll be lucky to keep his sanity after all this ordeal. If you want to give the guy a call, you want to knock on his door, you want to pay him a visit and chat with him, that makes sense to me. But 30 days at a mental institution? Searching his house without a warrant, and when he says no, you arrest him? Something is big time not right. The authorities' justification so far has been the recent mass shootings. Remember, the recent mass shootings, okay, that's in Colorado, but the other recent mass shooting, are we talking about Fort Hood? Is that what we're talking about? Because that was a workplace issue. They said, quote, we received a few complaints about what were perceived as threatening posts. This is an FBI spokesperson. Okay, so that's all it takes now to round up citizens. Gosh, by those standards, a lot of people would be in the loony bin, wouldn't they?
You damn right Dick Cheney's heart's a political football. We ought to rip it out and kick it around and stuff it back in him.
Well, I have to tell you, Rush Limbaugh is beginning to look more and more like Mr. Big. And at some point, somebody's going to jam a CO2 pellet into his head. He's going to explode like a giant blimp. That day may come. Not yet. We'll all be there to watch.
I do say that I am for the return of the guillotine, and that is for the worst of the guilty. I first would allow the guilty bankers to pay, the ability to pay back anything over $100 million personal wealth, because I believe in a maximum wage of $100 million. And if they're unable to live on that amount, then they should, go to the re-education camps, and if that doesn't help, then be beheaded.
Okay. People say this kind of stuff all the time. But apparently, you're in danger because you posted one of these on Facebook. Not only are they wrong in Washington, but they seem to be applying this tactic one-sidedly by ignoring people that we see all the time, and the Blaze has reported on relentlessly, like the new Black Panthers.
We have to resist from white supremacy. You can fight this white man. And I'm not telling you to go out here and attack nobody. But in self-defense, it's okay to fight back. We're taught to send this cracker to the cemetery. When he put his hand on us, we sent him to the cemetery in self-defense. Because you should be thankful we're not running around here hanging crackers by nooses and all that kind of stuff yet.
You want freedom? You're going to have to kill some crackers. You're going to have to kill some of their babies. Let us get our act together.
This is old footage. Earlier this week, we had them in another conference call saying that they should throw bombs into nurseries. These are specific threats against the specific group of people. Why are they not being detained and questioned and locked up in a loony bin? Ted Nugent was questioned by the Secret Service for saying this.
If Barack Obama becomes the president in November again, I will either be dead or in jail by this time next year.
Okay, that's a threat on him, not the president. Ted has been targeted in more ways than just a Secret Service visit, but they have even taken him down. But has anybody went and talked to the Occupy Wall Street people? Many, many people on national television have been calling for revolution. Here it is.
My political goal is to overthrow the government. We want to get rid of the corrupt, get rid of the Federal Reserve, and get rid of all the too big to fail companies, and just reconstruct the entire government itself.
Part of the issue is that a lot of the people that are here are in fact anarchists, are in fact revolutionaries, and putting a revolutionary change into political terms is very difficult to do, because we're trying to get away from all the problems, and we don't really want to fix them. It's revolution, not reform.
How is this legal? Many were actually in the streets, setting things on fire, breaking windows, not to mention the non-revolution related crimes of rape, theft, sexual assaults. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, Nancy Pelosi gives them her blessing, says good things will come. The president does the same. But the Tea Party, the Tea Party is put on extremist watch lists because they are anti-government and singled out as a possible military threat in 2016. They're targeted. But the union leaders who are now on tape for over a year, and we've got new ones, on tape calling for the overthrow of capitalism and the United States of America and economic terrorism, is fine. Watch.
How do we create a mood in the nation where we're occupying our workplaces, where we're shutting down our workplaces, not where we're shutting it down for somebody else, but where workers are sitting in, where workers are shutting down their places of work, and when the police come, when injunctions come, we're all there with them so that we can really deal with part of the reason that the economy is so screwed up, which is what everybody said, which is a few people got all the power.
If one is going to pursue this to its logical conclusion, the only way to have a genuinely democratic society would also be to abolish capitalism in the state.
Progressive Labor is a revolutionary communist organization. Its objective is to make revolution in the United States, overthrow the capitalist system, and build communism.
That's ignored. But when a 13-year-old boy tried to warn Obama about possible suicide bombers, remember this?
I was saying how Osama is dead and for Obama to be careful because there might be suicide bombers.
When he says this, he gets pulled out of class by Secret Service agents. They come with the dark glasses and the earpiece, and they question him without the consent of the parents. Now, I'm not an expert, but it sure looks like one side is being singled out. And the only thing that accomplishes is it makes people much more frustrated. That's why you have people like this judge in Texas talk about preparing for civil war if Obama wins re-election. Listen to this.
He is going to try to hand over the sovereignty of the United States to the UN. Okay, what's going to happen when that happens? I'm thinking worst case scenario.
Right,
okay?
I understand.
Civil unrest, civil disobedience, civil war, maybe. I mean, we're not talking just a few riots here and demonstrations. We're talking Lexington, Concord, take up arms and get rid of the guy.
Quote, I'm thinking worst case scenario, civil unrest, civil disobedience, civil war maybe. We're not just talking a few riots or demonstrations, end quote. Can you even imagine having this conversation 12 years ago? I couldn't. 2 years ago? Look, the problem is the president has to be the president for everyone. We do not have a rule of law anymore. That's the problem with business. That's the problem with everything. There is no rule of law. It's a nation of men and not laws. That's the opposite of what we were set up. That's the opposite of what made us great. The president cannot relegate those who disagree with him to a back seat because he won. The president answers to the American people, does not dictate to them. The president and all members of Congress also take an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic. When someone is calling for revolution in the streets, that is an enemy of the Constitution. When they say they're going to overthrow capitalism and our system and our government, the state, then they are a threat. The president welcomes the free flow of ideas and even protests, not suppresses them, in America at least. Everyone remembers we hold these truths to be self-evident from the Declaration of Independence, but a lot of people have forgotten the last paragraph, or the paragraph right before that. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them one with another and assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. You see, they're saying that we can be separate and we can be equal, but we just have to tell each other why. This is the instruction manual for what to do when a government becomes oppressive. The people viewed it as their right, and our founders said it was our duty to remove those shackles. We're not there. We're not there. But there are revolutionaries. And now the full force is not just the media. Now the federal government is involved in painting people who disagree with the president as crazy and acting upon it, or dangerous and acting upon it. America is the land of the free. You have the right to be free to a stupid opinion. You are free to post them on Facebook. If you are threatening the president, expect a visit from the authorities and a little chat. That's totally reasonable. But a land that is truly free does not subject the citizen to a humiliation of psychiatric evaluations in a mental hospital without any charges or warrants against them. That's not America. A land that is truly free does not seek to intimidate, isolate, marginalize anyone based on ideology. A land that is truly free would allow and encourage the free flow of expression and ideas. I will stand with anyone on the left to defend their right to express themselves in a nonviolent way, no matter, and in fact, especially if I find it offensive. I will stand for their right to say it, but not to abolish the country and not to kill. In a land that is truly free, justice is truly blind. In a land that is truly free, citizens will not turn a blind eye to injustice. There is a greater injustice than denying these freedoms to someone who risked their life to protect them. If there is, I don't know what it is. Despite what their personal views may be, we stand up for our fellow citizens. This story is long from over, but I am warning you now, the federal government is seeing how much you still care. This is a shark bump. Are you food for sharks? Or will you stand and say enough? Our limits are being tested, and thankfully, so far the system is working. It took a few too many days for my taste, but it's working. It wasn't the first, and it won't likely be the last. We will talk to the attorney, John Whitehead, in this case, next.